Hello, good evening, and welcome to tonight's edition of The Probe. I'm Carlos Caloni, and we're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, and around the world on myjoyonline.com. We're also live on Joy 99.7 FM and Love 99.5 FM. You can also catch us live. We're streaming across all our digital platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and X at Joy News on TV. Now, a delicate diplomatic rift appears to be unfolding between Ghana and the United States, at least over the past 24 hours, following a sharp, exchange of words between Ghana's Foreign Minister Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa and the chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, Jim Risch. Now, the U.S. senator, in a pointed post on X, formerly Twitter, took issues with Ghana's debt obligations to American companies and questioned the foreign minister's decision to travel to Washington. Let's bring you that particular statement, which is there on your screen. It said, instead of a trip to D.C., Ghana's foreign minister should focus on honoring his government's commitment to repay U.S. companies and the American taxpayers. We cannot keep subsidizing Ghana while it continues paying for larger debt to China. That's according to Jim Risch. Well, but in a firm rebuttal, Ghana's foreign minister Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa condemned the remarks as, quote, extremely offensive and hypocritical, questioning why the U.S. had not shown similar resolve in addressing its historical responsibility in the transatlantic slave trade. Let's bring you that statement also from the Foreign Affairs Minister, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, which he posted on his Facebook page. And there you have it. It reads, this is very rich coming from someone who refuses to engage in same advocacy for the payment of reparations by the U.S. for its despicable and condemnable role in slavery. And he goes on to say, you will not be allowed to dictate to a sovereign country how we conduct our foreign policy. If you need to be reminded, this is Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana, the first African nation to defeat colonialism and imperialism. Let me be clear, those measly debts compared to what you owe us in reparations would be paid when we deem appropriate based on our prudent economic recovery program, even though the debt was not created by the new Mahama administration. Unlike you, we take responsibility and honor our national obligations. Now, the global response has been swift. While many have applauded Ghana's foreign minister for firmly defending Ghana's sovereignty, others also criticized his rhetoric as undiplomatic, warning such a statement could undermine U.S. investor confidence in Ghana's economy. Meanwhile, critics of the U.S. have also condemned Senator Risch's remarks as, demeaning and an affront to Ghana's sovereignty that opens up the conversation on neo-colonialism tactic by powerful nations through debt. But on the issue of debt, how much exactly does the government of Ghana owe the U.S. companies, and what level of U.S. subsidies does Ghana receive that justifies Senator Risch's claim that Ghana is neglecting those obligations in favor of repaying China? Here are figures from our research desk, and you see the import-export graphic there on your screen from 2017 to 2023. And in 2017, you see our import, which was about 1.25 billion US dollars, as against 0.78 of exports. And in 2018, we did a lower 1.03 of imports and 0.63 of exports. Fast forward to 2019, it's jumped up a bit to $1.13 billion as against 0.98 of exports. Then you come to 2020, we did some 0.79 of imports as against 0.75 of export. And it jumps from there all the way to 2022, where we had our highest exports so far per this graph, which is $2.83 billion in 2022, as against our export of 1.14 billion dollars. Then it reduced in 2023 from that 2.83 to 1.74 of exports, against 1.05 of import in 2023. Now, the senator also spoke about some debt. So we checked up and we realized that Ghana's debt to American companies so far is around 2.51 million Ghana cedis. And you'll recall that the U.S. ambassador earlier raised concerns about this particular amount of money. And so these are the figures you see on your screen. Now, let's look at some American companies that the country owes. That you have Twin City Energy. American Tower Company is one of them. Global System for Mobile Communication, Cosmos Energy, as well as Zipline. These are a few of the companies that we owe that amount. And Ghana's bilateral debt to China, which is what also is a sharp, observation by the senator, is $1.7 billion. That's how much Ghana owes China so far. The figures we've been digging up so far. So tonight, the probe we ask, was Senator Rick's statement warranted? Could this affect Ghana's U.S. bilateral relation in any way, especially with the U.S. as a key development partner? And how can Africa mount a decisive pushback against such perceived colonial rhetoric? Now, joining me for this conversation on Zoom is international relations expert Dr. Ishmail. Also on Zoom, Associate Professor Obemfo Obadale Carbon of the Institute of African Studies at University of Ghana, and Ras Mubarak is a former member of parliament for Kumbungu and a lead campaigner for the Trans-African Tourism and Unity campaign. On the phone line is Nana Asafo Aye. He is the Deputy Ranking Member of Parliament Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration Committee. When we return, we get all the answers. Stay with us. Thank you so much for staying with us. Let me begin with you, the Deputy Ranking, on Foreign Affairs Committee, Nana Asafo Aye. First of all, these two statements from the Senator himself and our Foreign Affairs Minister. What is your initial reaction to both statements?
So I would first and foremost say a big thank you, and then greet my other colleagues, panelists that are online, Zoom, and then via call. So my first reaction will be that you need to have what Sanju said. Is there any time you want to get into a fight, you must know and be prepared of what you want to sacrifice before you win that fight. That should be my basis for some of those discussions. Now, one will ask that what warranted or necessitated the post, and I have seen or heard when I joined the line that you've done some good job by giving viewers and listeners the background of this whole conversation. So it has to do with the U.S.-China issue cut across a lot of places. They have to realize that there have been some fast loan payments or debt payments in huge amounts to China against the U.S. And, they are carrying or importing their so-called supremacy or world supremacy fight even to any point or to every point that they find themselves. So the senator was trying to raise an issue about how Ghana is servicing its debt to China fast and in huge amount as against Ghana. That was the import of the post from the senator. Now, the next thing I would say is that the minister saw this post, what should have been for me, my thought and my thinking, my opinion, my response? Yes, you must first and foremost get some intelligence of what has been written. What is the background of what has been written? What will be your response? How will you respond? And where you will respond, for me, is key and critical, because it will bother across a lot of issues. One, across the risk of a sustained relationship. Two, it will bother across some economic implications. Three, it will have to do with some diplomatic relations. Now you are just opposing and pitching sovereignty against diplomacy. And you know, I keep saying, diplomacy is not emotions. And when you get emotions into some of these things, then you are swaying off the issue of diplomacy. And there is a level of tactfulness too that we must look. There were some issues or points. I am not against the minister exerting or trying to exert the sovereignty of Ghana and standing up to defend the image of Ghana. But for me, I think, one, I would choose a different avenue. Two, and even if I would do it on social media, I would come with much more deep and detailed response that would even get a lot of people behind my fight. But what has been done, it is coming across to the American investors that it appears to be that we are not so much concerned about the issue their senator raised. Now, for you to even call back the deportation fees that have been paid, so are you saying that because that have not been paid, that is why you are also owing them and have not paid? That's why I'm saying that the response from the minister should have been a bit more calculated and thought through.
So you believe that his response was not appropriate?
I think that his response could have been put well in the light of accepting our sovereignty, in the light of standing our feet and fighting so-called quote and unquote, what do you call it, international intimidation, or some, the Pan-Africanists who want to show and come out stronger that, hey, we are Africa. In the quest to do that, I feel we could have had some better and detailed ingredients in the response that will put the message out there clear and straight than what was done.
All right. You also touch. You touch on repercussions on our economy. What exactly do you mean?
So you see, we are Ghana. We are standing in a very critical and sensitive economic recovery phase. Means any loss of investor or investor confidence or perception of the investors would give us a lot of instability and might even end up weakening our dollar. You know how we are trying, and the government is gaining some credit on this dollar issue. Now, we are recovering, and it is very important. This America, let us not forget that they are one of the largest, support base to our economy. And it is critical and important that dealing with them, we must deal with them and tread with them cautiously.
Okay.
That is why I'm saying that there is some economic implication on what has been written. Now, you are telling the investors, you are telling the companies in here that, we are not even interested in servicing our debt with them. And now you are also creating an impression as though because there is a regime change, you are not so, you want to shift blame. Because when you say that, because this is not, it is even coming from the old administration and all that, when you inherit power, when you take over everything. You take over assets, you take over liabilities, you take over everything. So that is why I'm saying that even though I agree to the point that you must come out clear and stand on your sovereignty, it is also key and important that you do not do that, rattling some tables.
Okay. I think the point is well made. The point is, how about bilateral relations with the U.S. itself, apart from trade, briefly in 1 minute? Any impact at all?
So you see, with Ghana, US currently, I mean, we are sitting on a bit of tenterhooks. One, they came out strongly to give some travel advisory. And in that travel advisory, they were clear to their people not to visit Ghana. And they put Ghana in a certain point of high-risk area. Now, the next thing was to give us an indication of deportation. The next thing was to give us an indication of ban. It tells you that gradually, our relationship is getting into a point that there's not so much, to the point that we are looking up to. That is why in my earlier conversations with you and your station, I have said that, look, it is long overdue. We need a high-profile diplomatic relationship or talks, back room with U.S. That is why I said that when the reciprocal tax was launched, and the minister wrote on his Facebook wall that he has requested the ambassador to visit or to come and explain, I said that, no, look, you don't need some of these things. These things are, kids play. You don't need some of these things. You need to engage at the highest level. For me, I even proposed and wrote on my Facebook as well that you need to contact the Putus himself. You see,
okay.
Lots of areas, and the foreign minister should know that he does not speak for all the sectors. You don't speak for the finance minister. You don't speak for the president. You don't speak for, and I don't believe that the kind of response he's posted there was the response that all these sectors would tell him to do, and that is what is making it very difficult and critical.
Okay. Okay, I think the point is well made. Let me bring in Ras Mubarak. First of all, what do you make of the two statements and what Nana Asafo-Adjei is telling us? You agree with him?
Well, what an exciting time we are in. I think the ranking member of the U.S. Senate's Foreign Affairs Committee was completely out of line when he made the point that our foreign minister should be focused on paying U.S. companies. He being the ranking member, and he's been a chair of the committee before, he would have known that the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, first of all, is not the finance minister. And so if there are issues of, finances and obligations to U.S. companies, it would have to be treated from the back room through the U.S. Treasury Department, and our Ministry of Finance. So he was completely out of line when he attacked the foreign minister. It was nothing but a personal attack. And I think I applaud the foreign minister, Okudzeto, for the clapback. I call it bold diplomacy. We live in an era where people in the West feel, they can speak to us condescendingly and treat our officials with disdain and get away with it. So Okudzeto's response reminded me of incidences in the 50s and 60s. And I'm sure you would remember an incident in October 1957 in the heat of the civil rights movements and racial discrimination in the US. Our Minister for Finance, Komla Gbedema, had been refused service in a restaurant in the United States of America, the Howard Johnson restaurant. I mean, we protested so vehemently to the extent that the US president then, President Eisenhower, invited our finance minister to the White House within days of the incident. Okay, if he had taken this so lightly and would have said, the US is such a powerful country, and so we can't protest vehemently, you can imagine how it would have looked on us. And indeed, that, protest from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 57, led to many good things happening for our country. Again, you could remember Nkrumah's own run-ins with the US administration, and he's written copiously about that in his book, Dark Days to Ghana, where he had been seen to be very, very critical, of some US, policies in Africa and the East and the Global South. So this is not entirely new. What is new is the fact that it's playing out on social media, and it's played out in a way that shows our foremost diplomat as very, bold representative of our country.
Okay.
Having said, let me make the point that there's so much at stake, right? Ghana and the US enjoy a very, very positive, trading relationship underpinned by mutual economic interest and strategic cooperation. I didn't hear you say this, but Ghana is the third largest US export market in sub-Saharan Africa. We sell a lot of gold, a lot of cocoa and oil to them as well. This is a trading relationship that is worth over $2 billion. So I disagree with the ranking member of our, parliament that is going to have dire economic repercussions. I don't think the Americans would want to throw, more than $1 billion worth of trade relationship with Ghana, and neither would Ghana want to throw that away. So the relationship is cast in stone, but it doesn't mean that we should allow them to show us disrespect. We should allow them to be very condescending towards us. Yes, I mean, Ghana owes the US $251 million. It owes companies, and these are, US companies, Twin City Energy, Cosmos, etc. Now, if you listen and if you read what the Jim Rich wrote, it's clearly at the back of his assumption that Ghana was paying the Chinese a lot more, and we owe the Chinese in bilateral debt of figures between 1.7 billion and 1.9 billion. All right, so he's making false claims that Ghana is busy paying the Chinese and not paying the Americans. Actually, my checks from the Ministry of Finance clearly indicate that not a peso since the assumption of this administration has been paid to the Chinese. That's far. I mean, the finance minister was in China yes, but he was there to renegotiate, the debt we owe the Chinese, and it's quite a lot of money. A lot of these debts, were taken for infrastructure development of our country. Of course, we have obligations as a country, to honor our debts to our foreign partners, to companies that operate in our country, companies like Cosmos, etc. But the ranking member of the U.S. Senate also knows that Ghana is in dire straits, currently undergoing economic challenges. And so It's not like the money is sitting at BOG and we are paying the Chinese and not paying the Americans. The money is not there, and if the money is not there, we would have to walk a thin line.
All right.
And that is why the finance minister as well has engaged American officials. If you recall, he was in the US as well. I think the last one was about his second visit to the US. So Jim Rich could have found a proper way of addressing this than to use Twitter. I mean, he should have known, having been, a chairman of the committee and now a ranking member, that the Minister for Foreign Affairs does not pay foreign debts.
So does that justify Samuel Okudzeto's approach also, using Facebook to respond to him?
Well, I mean, there are no hard and fast rules. He could have used back channels, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with using the same channel that the ranking member of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations used. And for me, what it shows is that there's more transparency. Now we're beginning to see, what happens in the area of diplomacy. Instead of 50 years from now, we'll be reading it from the classified files.
Okay.
It's playing out. And it helps in, encouraging transparency. And I couldn't have.
Okay, thank you so much. Hold it for me, Raz. Let me come to Ishmael Lovo. I want to pick your thoughts on the two statements also, and also the language used by our foreign, affairs minister, as well as Jim himself. What do you make of it? Many are describing the response as undiplomatic. Do you see that also from the James angle also? Kindly unmute so we hear what you're saying.
Are you still with me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, so like I said.
Oh no, Raz, can you hold for me? I want to engage Dr. Ishmael Lovo now, and I'll let you come in. Yeah.
So I think that in the first place, the ranking member was also a little bit out of order. He went too far in attacking the foreign minister's trip. But equally, the response of our foreign minister was equally too aggressive, if you look at it. In the first place, what's the interest of the U.S. Senator? His interest is to ensure that American companies that the Ghanaian government owe is paid, and therefore he decided to employ the diplomatic pressure, which is normal in diplomacy, where you sometimes can put this kind of pressure on countries and see that your interest is attended to. That having been said, if you go behind the scenes in terms of the debt that we are owing, you realize that some of those debts are owed to U.S. pension funds and some are owed to the American Treasury. So it's public money. So he is a public senator defending the interests of his public. Now, equally, if you ask what is the interest of Ghana that the foreign minister will want to defend, the interest of Ghana here is that, one, you want to defend your sovereignty, which is appropriate, and two, you want to still project Ghana as a friendly nation committed to paying its debt. Now, if you put these two interests at play, I would think that defending your economic interests and projecting Ghana as a very friendly country committed to pay its debt is more, must have priority over the issue of sovereignty. Because you have to ensure that in as much as we are in financial stress, we are in economic distress, you still have the need to create the impression that the environment is conducive for further foreign direct investment. I don't think that this statement that the foreign minister put out achieved that aim. This statement, instead of debunking what the U.S. senators say, reaffirm the fact that it's as if we are accepting that we are paying the Chinese while ignoring U.S. companies. Because there's nothing in this statement that actually puts out the fact that Ghana has not paid or Ghana is paying evenly. So it is safe to assume that what the U.S. senator said is true. And if we are going to talk about morality internationally, it doesn't really exist. The point is that the only morality of the senator is the morality of his state. That is the interest of his state and the companies emanating from his state. And of course, if you are going to deal with foreign policy in this era with morality, you are going to get a lot of things wrong. And instead of focusing on the substance of the message and responding to it, for instance, how much have we paid so far since the administration has taken office? If you have not paid it, make it clear. And that gives us something more detailed to deal with. So the response was, for me, it was overly aggressive. It was more of grandstanding and showmanship than concrete diplomacy. It doesn't give you what you actually wanted to see. Yes, it's good he wants to respond, but when you are responding, give us the facts of the issue. Give us the details of what Ghana is doing, so that in trying to respond, that everybody knows that, well, what he says is not true. The response virtually give the indication that, yes, we have agreed that we are paying the U.S., and also give the indication as if we are back to the days where we owe debt and say that we unilaterally will pay at our own convenience. That is not what is appropriate at this point in time, because we need the U.S. as much as we need the Chinese.
You think this is going to have some diplomatic implications as well as issues with finance and investor confidence also?
I think that in terms of investor confidence, that doesn't order well. But in terms of diplomatic relations, I think Ghana-U.S. relations, although currently is facing a lot of challenges, is still in a very safe hand, and I don't see this. But these are part and parcel of actions that are quickly deteriorating the level of relation we have with them. Of course, U.S., Ghana, there are so many aspects of our relations that must go on. We may have differences, but we'll iron them out. Of course, if you look at what the U.S. and Ghana do together in terms of trade, in terms of investment, in terms of security. There are so many aspects of our relation that will keep us together. But this unnecessary public show of brickmanship, of public showmanship, doesn't really help us to get things that we want. Yes, okay. Of course, as a foreign minister, he's right to respond, but I think that the response was overly aggressive.
Okay, you say it's public showmanship. You are an international relations expert. What would you want to advise, tell him in terms of advice, subsequently, if issues like this come up? How should he respond then?
He has, I would say that he has the right to respond, of course, to some of these issues, but then let him take his time, put out details of the position of the country, get detailed information, but if you involve trade and other something like this, putting out the right figures will communicate clearly where we are on some of these issues. And I will also say that, you see, foreign policy essentially is based these days more on diplomacy because of the kind of international system you find yourself. So you must apply a lot of tact in what you do. Being overly aggressive, trying to show power that I don't think we have, that's because you want to assert your sovereignty. It's not always going to help. So I think that it should, in as much as it can't go off social media, it should exercise some restraint when it's responding to issues like this.
All right. He also raised key issues in his response. He talked about reparations, and are these not legitimate concerns of every African?
This is legitimate, but then the issue at stake has nothing to do with reparation. The senator has a choice either to defend reparation or not. That is moral. So that's why I say, for morality, let us leave morality aside. The only moral code for a statesman is the interest of his country. In this case, what's the interest of the U.S. senator? The American companies that have invested here, whose money is at stake, should be paid. That is his sole interest. As for reparation, it is also your own interest to push. And whatever form you choose to push it is up to you. So I believe that while reparation is a legitimate claim you have to make, that does not constitute a moral reason why he will not push you to see if he can use this means to. You see, what he even seek to do, our response have made him to achieve it because he wants to start a conversation around U.S. debt. So we are talking about U.S. debt because he has used that channel and we have responded and we have to talk about it. Do you understand? So
it was a trap. It was a trap set for us, and
yeah, perhaps we could have just. But if you have even brought more details, I'm sure that then people will have bought a lot more into our argument. Now, but as I said, if you talk about morality, for me, international relations simply the best morality is the interest of your state, no matter how you achieve it. Either people think that it's immoral or not, it's inconsequential. You can talk the morality or you can. But then it's about result. The result is that he wants to get Americans to be paid as much as the Chinese are being paid.
But of course, our foreign affairs minister is also pushing for our own interest, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's why I give you two interests that were at stake in his response. The first interest is the sovereignty issue, which this release we have addressed. The second interest is the economic issue, which this release did not address, because if you say that we are Nkrumah's Ghana, yeah, and all those rhetorics, and that we will pay it at our own, virtually saying that we will pay the debt at our own time and pace, then you are virtually signal to investors of not being so committed to it, and then you are also somehow giving future investors not the confidence they need to invest in it. So in that case, you have achieved one of the interests, but damaging to the second one. That is what it is. So okay. Yes, if you are defending interests, I think that in this situation, what sovereignty is important, what is more important is the economic issues, and in fact, the foreign minister, I from my understanding, part of the reason why he was in the US was because he was going to present Ghana's recovery program to the Undersecretary of State for foreign affairs or so, and also meet the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs and discuss issues of immigration as well as the issue of the debt. So the debt issue was part of his mission to the US. So if you have gone to address all these issues, all right, and then there's somebody who pretend not to see, if you are coming to respond, you respond in a manner that communicate to all of us that the issue is not like you're not addressing it, you're addressing it, but then it is not up to maybe the rate at which they want their money, your country is not in a position to honor them. Okay. Or you present the fact that indicate that you are not prioritizing the Chinese over them.
Okay. Hopefully, let me go to Professor Abadambo. If you're on, you are, a scholar when it comes to African studies. And if you monitor social media, when this story broke, people from across the continent have been commenting on this matter. I understand Professor Abadambo is not ready now, but let me come back to you, Nana Safo-Adjei. We know this reparation issue that our Foreign Affairs Minister has raised is not the first time. I mean, former President Akufo-Addo himself raised these concerns. And so what do you, the minority, make of that concern from the Foreign Affairs Minister, the concerns he made from your side? What do you make of it? Legitimate, right?
Thank you. Quick one. Let me say that, like I said earlier before other speakers came in, we had people in a fight. Was the one having a clear strategy in mind, and the other do not really have a sector had a strategy. So that's why I said that when you want to go into a fight, like Sanchu said, you must be ready and prepared, know what you are going to sacrifice for a win. And I came back to say that the content of the response of the minister should have been well thought through, discussed, well researched, detailed, to give a certain indication and a certain path.
I think we are losing you, Nana Safo-Adjei. If you could reposition yourself a bit. Okay, I think we've lost him there. Ras, are you still with us?
Still with you. And if I may come in, I completely disagree with my brother Ishmael, whom I agree with most of the time. Look, Ablakwa achieved 4 things. Assertion of our sovereignty by invoking Nkrumah's legacy and rejecting foreign dictation. Reinforces Ghana's independence. It also resonates with national pride and historical anti-colonial sentiment. That is very, very important. The second thing he achieved with his response was, linking the U.S. criticism to the, under-addressed issues of slavery, reparation, etc. The third thing, which he clearly mentioned in his response that, all the other speakers have glossed over, was the fact that he did emphasize that the Mahama administration inherited a debt and is managing it through a recovery program, that the U.S. is clearly aware of. So that has been addressed, and then, there couldn't have been a better sign of bold diplomacy, than this one. His direct and forceful rebuttal, clearly challenges the U.S. tone. And what it signals is that, look, you can treat us with disdain. Ghana is willing to stand firm. We are not seeing ourselves as a junior partner in this. The relationship is mutual. The U.S. benefits from bringing things here. We benefit from selling cocoa, gold, oil to them. So we can't behave as if we are, junior partners in a relationship. And that has been one of the bane of countries in Africa, asserting the authority and negotiating clearly in a tone and a manner that is very, very forceful. And that is why I told you what happened in October 1957. If we had not protested vehemently, Eisenhower would not have would not have invited Bedema to the White House. You know, that culminated in a lot of very, very exciting things. The issue of reparation, you know, the US economy actually thrived on slavery. Its agriculture is built, you know, on slavery. And I mean, they had imported 400,000 slaves from Africa, and they had enslaved millions in the US. You know, they still benefit from the labor of men and women who were taken into servitude. And these are very genuine issues that ought to be addressed by the United States of America. And let me make another point about the person who had sought to personally attack the foreign minister. For me, that is what I see it as. It was nothing but an attack on the person of the foreign minister, with what the ranking member of the U.S. Senate, you know, said. Now, this is a senator who has gained notoriety, you know, for championing the cause of lobbyists. He may have been a senator, he may have been representing, you know, his people, but look at his track record. Look at the current legislation he is pushing in the U.S.
Right.
You know, legislation that is nothing but racist, that seeks to, you know, push the U.S. farther and farther away. So that's the kind of character, you know, we are dealing with here. And I wasn't surprised that, you know, he would make that disrespectful or condescending remarks about our foreign minister. As we may have pointed earlier, the foreign minister could have decided to deal with it, you know, through the back door, through back channels. You know, there's nothing wrong with that strategy.
Okay.
And equally, there's absolutely nothing wrong with dealing with it publicly.
Okay, but Ras, before I go to Ishmael Lover, you know, when you're going into a fight, like Nana Asafo-Adjei put it, you need to know your strength. This is United States of America you're dealing with. We are a third world country. That's a fact. And so many are saying that the approach you are using, or our foreign minister is using, could be counterproductive. You don't agree?
Carlos, what makes you think we are junior partners? What makes you think we can't, you know, stand toe to toe with the US and negotiate on issues of trade and get the best deals for Ghana? Because what, their population is bigger than us and their GDP is bigger than us, so we should allow them to walk over us? Is that the suggestion? We are a sovereign nation, and it's important that however small we are, we should be able to assert our sovereignty and be able to go into negotiation with any country in the world and actually look out for what is in the best interest of our country. Finally, on this, and that is why we keep also pushing for the unification of Africa. If Africa is united, if we have one big, you know, standalone army, one big economy, we could sit at a table with China and negotiate on equal terms. We could equally sit at the table with the US and negotiate on equal terms. But that does not negate the fact that Ghana or Rwanda or Togo should not go into the negotiation table and ask for what they want. Because clearly, the Americans wouldn't be here if we did not have anything to offer.
Okay.
We have something to offer, and that's why they've been here for years on end. And that should be, you know, one of the guiding principles in going into a negotiation with them. They want something from us, we want something from them.
Okay.
So it's quid pro quo.
Right. Thank you so much, Ras. Let me bring in Professor Abadambo from the University of Ghana, you know, Institute of African Studies. Ras just talked about unification of Africa, so we have a bigger and stronger voice to, you know, match up with the United States. You have done a lot of work around this area. You agree with him? Kindly unmute so we can hear you, sir.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Wonderful. My take is slightly different. And, you know, I think that Jim Rich, the U.S. Senator, should be happy that, you know, the proposal is even for the debt to be paid in cash. Because if you actually look at what the actual debt is, so if you look at the 1948 definition of genocide, according to the UN, it defines genocide as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about the physical destruction, while in whole or in part, It also deals with imposing measures to prevent births in the group and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. So by all definitions, what Black people have been subjected to, both in the U.S. and on the continent, has been genocide at the hands of the U.S. I don't call it the United States, I call it the United States. And if you look at what they have done, if you look at the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, if you look at everything from the killing of Nana Fred Hampton to the killing of Nana Patrice Lumumba, where the CIA is implicated, Alton Sterling, I can go down, a never-ending list. If I look at the lynchings and even just the idea of reparations, it's like, if you tell me the life of Nana Fred Hampton, who was killed at the behest of the FBI, give me a dollar amount. Is that $100 that you pay me? Is that $1,000 you pay me? How can you even say it's a dollar amount of even one single Black person who has been killed anywhere on the planet Earth? That's killing members of the group. If we look at bringing about conditions to destroy the group and hold her in part, look at the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. Look at George Floyd, look at Aiyana Jones. For those who don't know these names, these are Black people who have been killed at the hands of these exact same ones who are saying that we owe them a debt. Look at, Rodney King. I can go down again, a list never ending. Look at Flint, Michigan, what's being done with the water there. Look at the sterilization policy. There was actually an official sterilization policy for Black people in places like North Carolina. You can look at, documentaries like Ma'afa 21, Black genocide in the 21st century. And again, I ask the question, how, when you say reparations, it comes from the root word repair. And I ask the question, how can you repair what's still in the process of being destroyed? Imagine I'm a construction worker, I'm building the house on one side, but there's a wrecking ball on the other side that's destroying everything that I'm building. And Baba Wale, Malcolm X, he said, imagine that they stuck a knife in your back, and not only are they not even willing to remove it and heal it, they won't even acknowledge that the knife is there in the first place. So for me, I'm not someone who is an advocate of reparations per se. I'm an advocate for retribution. So again, they should be very happy that they have a foreign minister who even thinks that they can repair by means of cash or any type of other thing like that. Because when we're looking at the school to prison pipeline, what is that but forcibly transferring children of the group to another group? When we look at all of the things such as the fact that Margaret Louise Sanger, who is the founder of Planned Parenthood, and you'll see those billboards all throughout Ghana, that she says that, and I'll quote her directly, she says, she doesn't want the word to go out that they want to exterminate the population of the Negro, right? That is Margaret Louise Sanger, the same one who talked about how to Planned Parenthood, she was the head of eugenics, sterilization against their will. You can look at, that's the name of the book, Against Their Will. You can look at the Indiana Eugenics Board. There's just so much evidence for genocide against Black people here on the continent, there in the U.S., and other places as well, that the idea that Prof, we owe them a debt is absolutely ridiculous. Go ahead.
If I may come in, when you talk about, genocide and reparation, the slave trade and all that, these are things we cannot really quantify in terms of, in monetary terms, for instance, right?
Yes.
But these companies have done businesses here in Ghana, and they know how much we are to pay them. And so bringing in the reparation argument to this, really, there's a huge disconnect. Don't you agree?
So, like I said, I think they should be very happy. When people are talking about Stop Galamsey, they're talking about artisanal miners. Now, I'm not for environmental degradation whatsoever, but if you look at the Anglo Gold Ashantis, which, by the way, funds the Kwame Nkrumah Chair at African Studies, which is where I work, who also fund the Anglo Gold Ashanti lectures, like literally they bought off most of our scholars, right? That they will give you money in exchange for you shutting up. Don't say anything about Newmont. Don't say anything about Anglo Gold Ashanti. No, and Newmont just sold a mine for $1 billion. I never heard anybody say anything about that. For me, the only thing that can set something straight is not a cash amount. Like the life of one single person cannot be quantified. The only thing there's a quote from Nana George Jackson where he said he will take his reparations in blood. There's a song by United Front that says, lynched and hung, I'm going to give you a slug. So when it comes to reparations, I'm going to take it in blood. So again, they should be very happy that they have a foreign minister who thinks that justice can be done in an amount that they can even pay, because for me, what they owe us can never be paid. And I think we should do in Ghana very similar to what's being done in Burkina Faso, where they are driving them out and, you know, taking over the mines. They've gotten billions from the time that they've taken over the mines. Barrick in Mali, they seized that gold and they drove them out. That needs to be something that is on our lips here. Of all the U.S. companies, the Ghanaians have built that U.S. embassy that's there in Consummate by, you know, the visa lottery. We've given them, you know, no less than 10 times what they claim the debt is, just by those who are trying to go to the visa lottery. You understand? So these are things that I think a lot of people are not thinking about, are not considering, but it would do us well to say, what is the true reparation for genocide and what actually needs to happen to the United States? A murderer is beyond any amount that they have. They owe trillions themselves. There are trillions of dollars in debt, and China owns a lot of that debt. But I think we need to think about all of these things differently. Stop Galamsey. We need to say stop these multinational white corporations that have American interests in them. We need to stop giving them grants in the form of trying to look modern. So because I want to look modern, I'll get Obroni Wewu. Look at how many millions we've given to them for free. No interest. It's like it's just a grant that we've given them just so we can have the junk that they have. It's the modern day equivalent of the rum and the mirrors and all the junk that they gave us in previous times.
All right.
So that's what I have to say. It's not cash, it is retribution.
All right. Thank you so much for your point. Ishmael, Doctor, you know, Professor Obadele wants us to approach this matter in a radical way. But in this scheme of things, globally, is that the best approach? Would that help us?
Thank you very much. We have tread that path before. Remember when Rawlings first came to power, we tried that populist approach, believing that the Eastern world will help us. But then when matters get to the heat, a delegation that was sent to the Eastern Bloc countries came back, couldn't get the aid that we need. And we have to do what is known as the U-turn in Ghanaian politics, where the Rawlings regime virtually have to abandon the socialist-oriented policies and embrace Western-led economic recovery programs. So it's not like we have not tried these approaches. In fact, if you go through our history, there are evidence of these approaches that we've tried, but they didn't work because the structure of the system is such that this approach needs a very united, a very strong nationalistic base if ever it will succeed. Now, so I don't believe that this approach is going to work. It may work for a while, but when the reality sets in, you then begin to understand that you have to tread cautiously, build your economy to be very strong, all right? If you want to go the Pan-African way, in connection with other African nations, when you become stronger, then you can stand up and accept whatever retribution, whatever reparation you think. But if you are economically weak, dependent, the only option you have, for instance, I will talk about Burkina Faso, the only reason why they're able to chase the West people away is because they have replaced them with the Russians and the Chinese. And I don't think that the solution to Africa is Islamization. It's never one. It's because in the long haul, the consequences of that will still bring us back to dependency.
Okay.
So we need to get our basics right.
Okay.
Stop the corruption. Get the structures right.
Right.
Grow your economies collectively as Africans. And then you'll be able to exert whatever reparation and retribution you want to exert. But economically weak countries, you can assert sovereignty theoretically, but when it comes to the practical realities of foreign policy, of economic policy, you are a dependent nation.
Okay.
And therefore, you must tread cautiously when you are dealing with the major powers.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Hlofo. Let me give the final word to Ras Mubarak. I have 2 minutes. What would you want to say about the way forward with dealing with these issues? Radical approach, or we maintain the status quo?
Well, we can't maintain the status quo, Carlos, and I reject and refuse to accept the fact that we are economically weak I mean, all of them are here. The British are here, the Germans are here, the French are here, the Americans are here. And they're here because we've got something that they badly need, So we need to dissuade ourselves from this thinking that.
But I hope you know that they are here to trade. They are here to trade, not to take our resources away like it happened before, right?
Well,
there's some sort of fairness this time around.
If you look at the terms are still unequal and uneven. And I've made this point some time ago that if I were president in any part of Africa, I would renegotiate mining deals, oil deals, etc., in a way that benefits our people the most. But on the issue of reparation, I mean, the United States of America has done it before. They've paid reparation to Japanese-American internment, so there's a precedent, and the fact that they've done it before does not mean this cannot be done, even though the numbers are in millions. I think it can be done. And the second point I want to make is that
quickly in 30 seconds.
30 seconds, the U.S. has global influence. And so if the U.S. leads the way in paying reparation, the French would follow, the Germans would follow, the British would follow, and any other, group of people who have come into Africa to, take from us and kill our people and rape our women and kill our fathers, etc. It can be done, and Africans, like the foreign minister has set the tone, should be the ones pushing forcefully for some of these things to happen.
Thank you so much for speaking to. I don't know if I still have Nana Asafa J. Aye. All right, so that's all we'll have time for this evening here on The Probe. You can log on to myjoyonline.com for more stories regarding this particular topic. My name is Carlos Kaloni. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good evening.